Glad we have you back speaking. Go ahead for 5 minutes, please, Mr. Shawari.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Anthony, as the Chief Security Officer of a Canadian corporation, which you hold 50% share, you told us that you also share into the profit of the corporation. Am I right to understand that?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Fritz yesterday indicated to us that the net revenue from the $11.2 million that was granted to GC Strategy, this GC Strategy has earned $2.5 million. Do you share based on that $1.25 million of that $2.5 million, sir?
Yes, we share in the profits of GC Strategies.
So I assume indirectly you're saying that you have benefited from $1.25 million net on that. So can you explain to me how you share the profit? However, when it comes to the risk associated with that or with any type of inclusion, you are very comfortable saying, as a Chief Security Officer, I do the check on the resources, which I understand based on Mr. Fritz. Yesterday, testimony was over 30 consultant as it relates to ArriveCAN that you must have processed their security background, yet you do not know anything about the project. You do not know anything about document tracking, and the only thing that you've made a comment is that the documents safeguarding was not a request. Can you explain to me how you're comfortable taking 1.25 million, but you're also very comfortable washing your hands off from anything that has to do with ArriveCAN?
I can only speak about my contracts.
Okay, so I take it that you are comfortable with taking 1.25, but you're not comfortable talking about other contracts. Okay, so let's talk about your contracts then. You said you have contracts for private sector, and you also have different contracts. You have public sector contracts for different accounts. Can you give me a breakdown of how many of your total accounts that's under your supervision? How many of them are private? How many of them are government related?
I would say 60-40 private sector.
60% private sector and 40% public. Any of those private contracts that you have been securing work directly or indirectly with the other 40% in the government?
In some occasions, yes.
On some occasion being 80%, being 40%, being 10%, being 1%?
10%.
10%. Okay. So can you tell me what departments, aside from the accounts that Mr. Fritz holding, you are holding within the government of Canada? Which department do you have a relationship with?
We don't hold any contracts with the government of Canada at the moment.
Can you tell me what contracts you held before that as part of that 40%?
Sure, I could get that information to you.
So I'm sure you've been since 2015. Can you give me the top 3 departments that you worked at?
D&D, Agriculture Canada, and Global Affairs.
Okay. Did Mr. Fritz at any time work any one of those accounts?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay. Do you have documentation safeguarding in those 3 departments as part of the work that you're doing?
No, we've never had document safeguarding in our history.
You've never had document safeguarding in history, regardless of the department that you're working with. And you're saying because PSPC did not request you guys, or you did not understand that that was a requirement. Am I right to understand that?
I don't have any knowledge of PSPC's processes.
You don't have any knowledge of PSPC processes, yet you signed contract 40% of the time with 3 different departments. I found that very hard, sir, that you don't understand the PSPC process regarding safeguarding of document or anything else while you sign 40% of your contracts. I'll be getting another term and I'll be following on those lines. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thanks, Mr. Zouari. Mrs. Block, please go ahead for 5.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Anthony, the Auditor General found that GC Strategies was involved in the development of a contract from the Government of Canada valued at $25 million that your firm received in May of 2022. Now, I know you've tried to build a bit of a firewall between your contracts and Mr. Firth's contracts in saying that they are separate. But it is my understanding in your role as the Chief Security Officer that you provide him with support when it comes to security assessments. Is that correct?
With regards to security assessments?
Yes.
Yes.
So in setting the criteria for the contracts for GCs, that GC Strategies ultimately won, did you provide any advice to Mr. Firth on the security requirements for that contract?
No.
Why not? If that's your role at GC Strategies, why would you not have provided him with any advice on that?
I was not asked.
So you only provide advice when you're asked? It's not a given that in your role as the Chief Security Officer, you would be providing that support?
Yes, I only give knowledge when asked.
As a 50-50 partner, do you receive 50% of the commission that is earned on Mr. Firth's contracts?
At GC Strategies, we share in the profits, yes.
Share in the profits, but not in providing advice when it's actually your job to do so. Okay, I get that. I guess maybe I don't. In your role, you would identify resources, vet them, and then notify Mr. Firth on the eligibility of the subcontractors. Is that correct?
Yes.
Would Mr. Firth ever ask you to change anything?
No.
Would you ever notify him of any discrepancies or any wrongdoing?
Absolutely.
Did you have to in the past?
Never.
Okay. Would he ever ask you to overlook anything?
No.
Okay. I'm not going to refer to the Auditor General's report. That's the one that you and Mr. Firth are disputing, but you have admitted you haven't read yet. And I'm turning to page 18. And in the Auditor General's report, she identifies some issues with security clearance and some task authorizations for GC Strategies. And I'll just quote it for you. The Canada Border Services Agency issued 2 task authorizations for cybersecurity assessments of the application under 2 of the GC Strategies contracts valued at approximately $743,000. The task authorizations required that the resources have a reliability security status. And what the Auditor General found is that security assessments were completed for ArriveCAN in a pre-development environment by subcontractors under GC Strategies. However, they found that some resources that were involved in the security assessments were not identified in the task authorizations and did not receive security clearance. In addition, the agency received invoices for resources listed on the task authorizations. However, it was unable to provide any supporting documentation to confirm that work related to the security assessments was performed by 4 of the 5 resources listed. Wouldn't that be part of your job?
All of the resources that we provided under those contracts had security clearance.
So you're once again disputing the Auditor General's report in regards to what she found.
What I can tell you is that all GC Strategies resources that worked on the contract had security clearance.
So Again, the Auditor General found that the agency was unable to provide any supporting documentation to confirm that work related to the security assessments was performed by 4 out of the 5 resources listed. So that's a pretty high percentage of no documentation to confirm that security assessments were conducted. I would suggest, sir, that you read the Auditor General's report before you actually dispute what's in it, and that perhaps, again, as a director or a 50-50 partner in this company, you would seek to understand some of the allegations that are being levied against your company. Thank you.
Thanks, Mrs. Block. We'll go to you. Sorry, we're out of time for a response, sir. But I'm sure we'll get back to another intervention. Ms. Sadu, please. Welcome to OGGO.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will pass to Mr. Jory.
Thank you, Madam Sidhu. Mr. Anthony. Okay, so let's talk about the number of RFP. You told us that the business that you bring to GC Strategy is split between 60-40, 60 private and 40% government. You highlighted D&D, agriculture, and transportation as 3 areas that that you hold as part of your account portfolio within the government. Can you tell me, since 2015, that you formed GC Strategy, how many RFP in general in those departments have you responded to, and what was your success rate? Or GC's strategy success rate?
I think we ran some numbers yesterday. I believe we submitted over 200 RFPs, and I believe our win rate was around 15 to 20%.
Okay, so that's good. It looks like you were watching the testimony, and that's good, because you earlier indicated that you had watched part of that testimony, so it looks like you're watching that part of the testimony, which is good. Okay, on the 15 to 20% win rate, and what's your win rate on the public side? Sorry, on the private side.
I don't have those numbers in front of me. I would assume it's probably a little bit higher, 20 to 25%.
20-25%. Okay. So when can you tell us how much effort does it go into preparing an RFP? So 100 RFP, you put over 200 RFP at 15%. That's about 30, which in my math doesn't add up, since you've had 60 to 65 contracts with the government. So there's some way my math doesn't add up, and I'll leave that to another round. But can you tell me now on your percentage of you talked about the percentage under 20%. Okay, so let's go back to 2005. In your earlier response to one of the questions, you said that you saw a trend as early as 2005. Can you tell me exactly what you saw that trend to be, and what was the driver that you saw in 2015 to say, oh my God, this is a perfect time to start this company?
Well, in 2005, I started as a recruiter, and I started in the business at that time. I didn't realize the trends immediately, but I knew that I enjoyed doing the work, and it was a good way to make money.
Okay, so when you say good way to make money, naturally you saw the margins that your firm at that time, which you're an employee, was making, because I'm sure you're privy to that, correct?
I was not privy to the margins at those
Okay, then
companies.
how do you know it's a good way to make money?
I was speaking personally for myself based on salary.
Oh, so what you meant is that